One, two, one, two, three, four.
That's one of the things that I talked about doing in marketing a lot is that I use an A3, which is basically PDCA, in the process so that that knowledge can be transferred and recorded and people know who to go to get it if there is some questions left in it. And I always thought that was a good way to introduce Lean to the creative department or to the engineering department. And what do you think the drawbacks are of doing it that way?
Well, I think, again, it's a sliding range. I think the first thing I was saying in terms of engineering, I'd start with a very simple checklist for the part. Then we say, okay, let's take the folder, and in this folder, you just put a lot of checklists, anything that comes to your mind that you consider as a standard. For instance, I have standards, and when I break them, I suffer. One of my standards is never do business in Lean with a guy who's not interested in Lean. You know, in the Lean world, you have all these guys who are completely mercenary, and they think they're onto something, and they say, don't worry, I don't need to understand Lean myself. I don't need to do it myself. And I just need to sell you Lean. That's going to be fine. Well, one of my standards is don't stop talking to these guys. There's no point because it's going to end badly. So you have standards, and engineers they discover they have standards. Standards are not rules. Standards are things that you know that if you step over that line, something will happen. So the next step is we'll have a folder of standards, and every time we get out of the standard, we'll discuss why. If we have an extra part, if we suddenly do an assembly process differently, oh, it's fine, we can do whatever we want, but we'll discuss why. And then the third, finally, we get into actually using the A3s. Now the A3s is a bit like, it's heavy machinery. The A3 is really, we use it when we want to go to the end of a problem we really don't understand. And the A3 for me is really a collaboration between the very senior engineer and more junior engineer. And together, the senior guy gets the junior guy to go all the way to a deeper understanding of the physics of the problem. Or the other way we use A3s is when we want to share a proposal. If we want to do things differently or a new product, we'll have a proposal. We'll put in an A3 because then we can circulate it amongst everybody and ask for everybody's input and ideas. So absolutely, I think A3s are a great tool. They're a bit heavy for everyday use. Again, do you see what I mean? It's a sliding rule, and the tool should correspond to the difficulty of the problem. So with very easy problem, we just stay a bit longer, look at it a bit harder. Then we go into the actual using the checklist. Then into the very difficult problems, we use the A3. So does that answer the question?
They call themselves a lean company, but they really haven't. They've left, let's say, like sales and marketing being silos out there by themselves. They don't want to touch that. Okay, that's a.
Oh, no, I see what you mean.
Yeah, and to introduce it to them, introduce it to the creative department, introducing lean to it. You know, the first thoughts people have of lean is price reduction, waste. Okay,
Yes.
We're going to do that, but it's really about building knowledge.
I completely agree. I think John Shook has been brilliant in seeing he's written the books about the two tools which are the brilliant ways to introduce anybody to lean. One is value stream mapping. To somebody who's never done it, it's just such that the light goes on and you go, wow. And the other one is A3, absolutely. To somebody who's never done it, the light goes on. So absolutely, if we go into departments, into places that haven't been touched by this, the two tools I would use without any hesitation would be to draw the value stream of what we're doing. It's always enlightening. Whatever happens, it's enlightening. And to start using A3 as a communication method, absolutely. This is absolutely where I'd start. The risk is of getting bogged down.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the A3s are high maintenance tools.
You're saying that's a lot for someone to start out with. That it's.
I'm saying they'll do it the first time. I'm saying they'd probably do it the second time, but we were talking about culture and PDCA as a culture. I'm saying that if you don't learn to be a bit lean about how you use your tools, you can get people a bit tired of it, and soon they get into the formalism of it without, putting the spirit into it. So if we want to use A3s continuously, we want to give other PDCA methods for people to do simpler stuff without going through the whole palaver of the A3.
Can you tell me some of the simpler PDCA methods then? Well, how would you term that? What is that?
Checklist. For instance, we're doing this podcast now. Can we write on one simple sheet of paper? Not to do the podcast, but to do it well. I have to get the lighting right. I have to make sure the mic is switched on. I have to put the kids to bed. This will fit on the one A4 sheet of paper. It will have 5 lines written in black and white, large letters. And this is already knowledge capture and creation. And you have read, then do checklists, or you have do, then check checklists. You see what I mean? Okay. So checklists are definitely, in marketing, think about the number of checklists you have. So the idea is that everybody, I've got it here. It's this old title book. This old title book has in there all my lean standards and all the things I've picked up through traveling the world. And I go back to it, I refer back to it, and when I have a problem, I go back and with any new problem, I look through the book and get my head back into it.
So you're really saying is that one of the best ways to introduce lean to, let's say, a non-lean department, okay, is to create standard work. Is that, without, let's say, maybe taking standard work to the far end, but
You're taking it a bit far because we're talking about introducing. I think that the first thing I'd do would be to think about stable teams. I really think that understanding who's a team and who's not, where's the team and who's the team leader is really important. Then I'd say, well, no, actually, let's do the 2 things you mentioned, that's where I started. Said, let's have a value stream exercise, which I will never touch again, but as a way to bring them to understand that they're part of something bigger. I think that's very important. And then we'll probably start doing some A3s, which I won't touch immediately again. Having done that, they're interested. I say, now let's everybody take one Kaizen subject, one Kaizen topic. And this is how I'd start. So I would first start with Kaizen and PDCA and confirmation. And once we've done that, then I said to people, well, what came out of this Kaizen? Write it up as a checklist. In your words, as a standard, as a checklist. But my approach tends to be small steps continuously. So we build it up slowly. Then later on, I will bring back the A3s. And typically in the companies I work with, we've done a burst of A3s at the beginning that people don't know how to maintain. And that's okay. We'll say, okay, never mind. And then much later on, when they worked with all the PDCA, all the methods of visualizing PDCA, which is usually just saying PDCA, and then at some point, one of them does something quite complex and say, you know what? Do you remember that A3 stuff? Yeah, I could put it in an A3. And you say, yeah, go ahead.